I've got like tons of clips here that I can always play. Uh, got this.
Nazi!
All kinds of stuff. My favorite one is
He's been reduced to a feckless, bedwetting, parmesan-shaving imbecile who revels in his own uselessness.
because you can never go wrong with James May.
Where's that from?
Oh, that's from ManLab.
Oh.
Do you know who James May is?
Unfortunately, no.
Oh, James May's from. They're very famous over here in the UK because James May, Jeremy Clarkson, and Richard Hammond all did Top Gear, and on Top Gear, they're essentially it's a car show where they just messed around all the time, and that's the best way to describe it. Constantly just messing about, and from that fame, they all got a few of their own shows. And one of the shows that James May got for himself was ManLab, in which it's essentially just him going around doing things, whatever he felt like doing at the time. It's so you remember like what was it? Tucker Carlson, he made that Making Men Manly Again show, and it just looks like someone's it looks like all the scenes cut together from Marvel where they just have shirtless muscular men like sweaty and flexing themselves. And it's like it's just so over the top and stupid. Imagine that, but it's a lot more contained, and it's more just about making things rather than being really fucking retarded.
Yeah, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe every MCU movie has at least one like shirtless guy scene, and
I think so.
Really,
yeah. At the very least,
yeah.
The only one I can think of that might not have it is Black Widow, but Iron Man, Captain America, they almost all have like at the very least one shirtless man during the film.
I don't think Black Widow has one. I don't think Eternals has one either. So yeah, that goes to show if it doesn't have a shirtless scene, the movie's bad. Or at least it's guaranteed.
That's the measurement we should go for. I think we should go more the route of equal opportunity. I think that we should also have shirtless women in scenes, and I would be personally very for that.
No comment. I'm not getting into that. I don't. We'll let the politicians sort that out. I don't need a target on my back. Just like that's what porn's for. Like we don't need, I get no pleasure out of seeing like naked people in general. It's just like it's just weird. It's like
I didn't mean just
yeah.
Oh, I meant more just as a joke. I wasn't being serious.
No, it's okay. I didn't expect to get on a tangent on this, but when I see people on Twitter who are like, "Oh, we need more like naked women in media because we always see shirtless men," and I'm like, dude, why are you so horny? Just go. If you really want to see that stuff, don't watch a Marvel movie.
I think at the very most, it shows a bit of like a double standard. That's kind of like where I lie on the thing, where if you're going the route of you're not allowed to like even put women in like attractive clothing, but then you're gonna have shirtless men, and one of these is allowed but not the other. It's a bit of a double standard of who you're allowed to objectify, and I hate using the term objectify because I don't think the term is particularly accurate because it's to turn someone in, view them as someone as an object, in which that's not how I ever view anyone I'm attracted to. I don't look at my girlfriend and think, yes, she's my object. I think, no, she's drop dead gorgeous.
Yeah,
if you know what I mean. It's just it's a strange term.
I think that with stuff like that, I really just don't need to see any of it, just because it's like it's fine. And with like, I really don't care about like when people look at video games and they see like characters that are like they aren't drawn like as bustily as they used to be, and then people are like, this is like erasure from the media, and I'm like, no, this is just like it could be, but like, does it matter? Like I don't look for that sort of
it matters that much, does it? Because it doesn't impact the storytelling. It's just I'll probably agree. I'd prefer a lot of the older designs. at the same time, it's a bit like it's a very non-issue in terms of the writing quality. I think that there's bigger problems with Black Widow than she's not as scantily clad as she was in other comics.
Yeah, I actually do hate Black Widow for that reason. Like the movie Black Widow, just because there are so many like gratuitous scenes of her with the camera, and it just like personally annoys me because it's just
Honestly, I watched the entire film. I never noticed a single one of the ass shots.
really
I never noticed them. It wasn't until someone pointed them out to me that it made me think about it.
Yeah, I was a little bit annoyed because I was like, come on, guys. Like, I don't like to get all social justice warrior, but like there are points where I'm like, you don't have to film it like that. Like, don't, you know. But I'm getting off my soapbox. I don't need to. We'd be here all day if I talked about stuff like that.
So I suppose the first thing to talk about is so what's your history with the Clone Wars, just to get a common ground going, because I've got a very long one, to say the least.
I have a very complex history with the Clone Wars, mainly positive. I was a Cartoon Network boy, so I always saw ads for that show, and I think the first thing I saw from it was the Mortis arc, and I was so confused because I was just like, who are these characters? I don't know what this is. And I hadn't seen the prequels at the time just because I was so young. I was just getting into the franchise.
I get confused watching the Mortis arc. Not necessarily. It's because I don't think it's very good. But
Mortis is very trippy. It's even to this day, it's a very trippy arc to me.
I think it's a bit inconsistent because not only does it kind of it's a weird arc. There's the son. Okay, let's just look at the son as a character himself. His main thing is that he's power hungry. He's an embodiment of the dark side. But then we take the son, and he wants to escape, and he also wants to kill his father. And those are the two things that we know he wants to do. But then he accidentally kills his sister, which he's like very sorrowful about. Which I guess is fine, but it kind of feels like they kind of hated each other enough to at least try to kill each other earlier, but maybe they were playing easy, who knows. Maybe they didn't really think they were going to kill each other, or maybe it's just some late feelings that came out that he didn't realize he quite had. I don't know. But the fact that he planned to, in that action, he was planning to kill his father, but later, when the father kills himself, that removes all of the son's powers so that he can be killed by Anakin.
I think, was that what the implication was? I just thought that it was...
He stabbed himself, and then he said, oh, you get your power through me, so therefore I take your power away, and then Anakin stabs the son.
I guess he just didn't know that, but I haven't seen that arc in a while, so I would have to
it'd be strange for him to not know his power comes through his own dad.
Yeah,
In which I then have to question how that works. So I guess if his dad ever died of old age, like how if his dad had a dad, how did he get his power, or why didn't he lose his power? Like what? There's a dynamic to this that it's almost a bit confusing because it's not really explained, and at the same time it also just seems a bit contradictory and maybe a bit on the fly of how they're making these rules.
Yeah, there's a lot with Mortis I don't understand. It's just very like I never was able to pay attention to it a lot just because it was so like overwhelming for me. But like I liked it. I liked like all of the scenes with honestly just like Anakin, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan. Those were always just like my favorite interactions with those characters. But I didn't really jive with the Mortis characters. I just thought they were kind of uninteresting because they were just meant to be like
very simplistic, one-dimensional characters.
The son's pretty great because he's played by Sam Witwer. He's very entertaining.
Anything Sam Witwer does is entertaining and great and amazing.
Really,
he's one of the people. Okay, so I know you probably would disagree with me on how they treat Maul, but like I genuinely look at Maul and I look at Sam Witwer and I think he's so incredibly talented. I really wish that they did more with Maul when they brought him back. and I kind of upset that they didn't do more with Maul. And I was talking to Sheev Talks, TK and C the other day when we were watching the Night Sisters arc, and we just randomly started talking about it, and we were thinking that wait a minute, Darth Maul is like killed Count Dooku's like basically his apprentice, who was a son to him, Qui-Gon, and that's like never brought up as like a conflict for Count Dooku, which would be fantastic to do in like a character perspective, because we know Qui-Gon still meant a lot to him by this time, as well as I think there's a lot of missed opportunities with Count Dooku and Obi-Wan, considering he's the closest thing he has to a grandfather in a sense. And I think that in the books, that's almost the analogy that's made, as Qui-Gon was the student of Dooku and the master of Obi-Wan. So the fact that they don't do more between these two characters every time they interact is a bit of a shame, and they both seem to have their own vision of Qui-Gon either helping them or being against the other one at the very least.
They do touch on it in Tales of the Jedi, which I liked, but that was like years and years later, and we didn't get that until recently.
I think Tales from the Jedi, I don't think it does enough, and at the same time, I think it is a bit late, because I think with the Clone Wars, they already make him a bit two-dimensional, and they could have still expanded upon a lot of these ideas. But then with Tales from the Jedi, I think with the runtime that we got, they should have focused way more on a more chronological arc of Count Dooku's fall to the dark side, because it's a bit, the stories are so self-contained that they don't really feed into each other. There's one, then there's the other, then there's the other. Like, they're just random pictures of 20 minutes of Star Wars.
Yeah, the Raxus arc I kind of despise, just because it's not like, they don't really add much to the story. It's really just Dooku and Mace Windu just chilling out. The one with Qui-Gon I love, where they're on that like desolate planet, and I love the one with Yaddle at the end, but I feel like they could have utilized that 6-episode format better, because like half of them are kind of just pointless and they don't really add to the story. But yeah. So with Clone Wars, I remember I saw Darth Maul one day in an ad, and I was like, wait, he's back? I don't understand this. Why does he have weird spider legs? This is stupid. I'm never gonna watch the show. This looks weird. And I was like, in the ad, it was like Obi-Wan had like those 2 lightsabers, and he was fighting Maul with them. And I was like, why does Obi-Wan have 2 lightsabers? This doesn't make sense. He only had 1 in the movie. I don't like that. I don't like that they changed that. And I was, by the way, I was like 4 at the time, so like, I was, I wasn't 4, but I was like 8. I was like very turned off by like changes, I guess. Like, I was like, I liked everything the way it was. And then one day I saw that R2-D2 had an episode with the R3S6 one where it's like Goldie replaces him, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool, because I like R2-D2, I like astromech droids, and obviously looking back on it now, that episode's pretty terrible, but it was a nice introduction to the show for me, just because it was a very simple story. It wasn't great, but like it had cute moments. I loved the duel with R2 and R3, and obviously, like, looking back on it now, that arc doesn't hold up whatsoever. It's pretty terrible, but like I have a little soft spot for it. But and then like obviously I got more and more into it. I would buy like more DVD box sets. I would be like catching more of the recent episodes. By like the Alderaan arc, I was pretty much like just super into the show. So by the time season 5 ended, I was like super into it, and then I realized that the show was ending. And then I caught the Netflix episodes that were on like that one short in season 6, and then I never really thought about Clone Wars again after that. And then I got more into it as like Ahsoka came back in Rebels. That was great. I liked seeing like Rex and Hondo again, but I still like had the feeling that like they could have done so much more with that show. and I felt like they kind of just like left the show to die. And then 2018, that day came, they said they were going to be finishing up the arc, and I was like so excited. It was like I think it was the first ever trailer I actually like just straight up bawled, because it was just so emotional to realize that they were finally going to be bringing the show back. And that whole day was just amazing. I think it was like July 2018 or something. That was just an amazing period of just like excitement, and it was really what got me back into Star Wars, because like the 2014 to 2018 was when like I was kind of realizing I don't really know if I'm super into this franchise anymore, because it was just like the sequels and Star Wars Rebels just kind of started putting a damper on the franchise for me, and there were moments I loved, but I was just kind of like going through the motions. And then like after 2018, we got like really great, at least in my opinion, we got some great stories. We got The Mandalorian, we got Fallen Order, we obviously got Clone Wars Season 7, Mando Season 2, and then we just kind of, like, I felt like we were getting more into the groove with the universe, and I feel like I kind of got back into the flow. And obviously, I don't think every story is perfect. They have tons of issues, but there are, I think that for the most part, I do like that this franchise is kind of back on the right track for the most part. I think that, like, seeing, like, for example, at, like, Celebration London, seeing, like, the array of fans who are just so passionate about things that they love, that I feel like we didn't really have that for the past few years, and I feel like now it's, like, we have things like Andor and Jedi Survivor that are just kind of, like, getting that whole golden age back, personally. But, not to say that this era is perfect. I think that for now we're doing pretty good, but I am still really excited for, like, the future of this franchise, even if there have been, like, disappointing aspects. But, that's, like, my 2 cents.
My history of the Clone Wars actually runs a bit deeper. I was... when did the Clone Wars film come out? Like 2008. I was 8 years old when I went to the cinema with my dad. And it was on a day off. He had off work, and I remember the day quite vividly, because I had played Star Wars the Battlefront as a kid, and I'd kind of watched the films, but it never really gelled with me until I was 8 years old, until I saw the Clone Wars film, and I started watching. I didn't really think about it afterwards, but I really enjoyed it. And then when the Clone Wars show started coming out, and I started watching it, I started, because I can't remember, I watched TV Network was airing it at the time here in the UK, but I remember, I think it kept changing between TV networks. It bounced between a few, so it was hard to keep track of like where it was, but I remember from a very young age I was very obsessed with the show. I had all the action figures, I did like any of the games that came out, I immediately bought them. I was just that much of a fan of the Clone Wars at the time, and it persisted way until like I was like 14, and I was absolutely devastated by the cancellation of the show. I actually had a real hatred for Disney, which made it... I honestly think that was one of the reasons why I hated The Force Awakens so much. And not to... because since then I've rewatched The Force Awakens, and I don't think it's that good, but my opinion is more nuanced than they fucking just cancel Clone Wars, you piece of shit. Fuck off.
Yeah.
One thing, it was quite difficult for me hearing that it wasn't that good. I kind of had this knee-jerk reaction a lot of the time, where it's like it's something that was so entrenched in my memory. My very first consistent username that I had online was Shiny Trooper, because I was watching. Actually, that dates to the MMO that they played, Star Wars: The Clone Wars Adventures. I don't know if anyone remembers that. I had an account there called Shiny Trooper, and that's what I got the name, and it just stuck. I always saw whenever I was doing anything, I was always like wearing a clone avatar. I was like clone inspired, just clone obsessed. I was the clone guy. Even in high school, I was the Star Wars geek that everyone like picked on me for, and everyone had a good laugh at. But yeah, it was wild that I had that much of an obsession with the show as a kid. But I suppose, and when season 7 came around, I was elated. I was with you. I cried. I really did. The last I was with at the time, we actually both bawled watching the trailer because it was like that much of a nostalgia hit at the time.
Yeah.
I think the trailer's still pretty good. When you look at most other trailers, I hate kind of like how generic and formulaic a lot of them are. Whereas I don't know, the Clone Wars one, I don't know, it's a lot more exciting.
Yeah.
To me, at least, it feels a lot less generic than a lot of the other ones that we had to talk about. So but I think it wasn't until I started talking a lot more about media criticism that I started to kind of like backtrack my opinions on the Clone Wars. It started off as that it was like a lot of the kind of like mediocre stuff. Well, a lot of the show was mediocre, and that it was either basic but not terrible, or that it was like some of the Umbaran arc. I was still upholding that was absolutely amazing. Whereas now, after rewatching some of it and coming back to it after talking to Sheep Talks and a few other people, I now hold the opinion that it's the best stuff is mediocre, and the rest of the show is either not good or terrible. It's a difficult opinion to have when I have such a strong connection to this show. Like, even still, like, I go by the name of Shiny, so you had to say it's not close to my identity.
No, yeah, that's completely fair. I find it so hard to hate the show because, like, it's weird. Like, if we're gonna be like, I hate using this word, but if we're, oh my god, I got the hiccups. If we're gonna be objective, I guess, I hate using that word. The show is like a 6, but like if you want me to take all like 120 something episodes and then rate each one and then take it and then add them together and then divide them by the score, like if you really want me to do that, it's like a 6. But like with Clone Wars, you kind of have to take the good with the bad, and I don't really consider it fair, I guess, to like bunch all of it together. Like I still stand by this. I gave season 7 a 9 out of 10. And obviously when you take all 12 episodes, it's not a 9, because you would have to take the Bad Batch arc, the Martez Sisters arc, and the Siege of Mandalore, and then combine it all together. But like, to me, that's not really what like season 7 was about. Like, it was always about the last 4 episodes of that season that like was the whole reason it existed. Like, it was never about like, we need to finish the Martez Sisters arc. Like, it was about just like the Martez Sisters arc was just about like reintroducing Ahsoka to the franchise after like who knows how long. And
you know, there was actually I think it was in like 2017. There was a panel or something about the Clone Wars and all the unfinished episodes. And did you hear about how the original Martez Sisters arc went?
Yes, it was like it was basically identical. At least the clip that they showed was identical.
The clip was identical, and they've reused assets from those episodes that it was made for, like the hangar bay, for example, and that entire speeder bike sequence is very similar.
Yeah, there's the sequence of like in the episode when Trace is attacked by that like gang person, and she's like trying to fight back, but she's doing a bad job at it, and Ahsoka is like kind of like giving her banter, like, I'll help you, but in return I want help with the bike, and then Trace is just kind of like butting heads with her, and then eventually Ahsoka intervenes, and then there's like this really great of her, which I do still love. I think it's a really great action sequence where she does like a bunch of backflips and she beats up all the gang members. But it was supposed to be just one guy. It was like, I think his ethnicity was like Asian American or something.
It was Nix Okami, yeah, and I think he was Asian.
And like, people were like, oh my god, Nix would have been so cool. And I'm like, honestly, like, if he was just the same person as the Martez sisters, and the only difference was
So in terms of character, at the very least, what we saw, the characters were quite different. Nick Sotami was more of a smuggler, kind of like outlaw kind of character, similar to Han Solo in a way, but kind of younger. Whereas the Martez sisters, one of them is a 30-year-old smoker, and the other one I think might have genuine learning difficulties.
Okay. We don't have to do Trace like that. Oh my god.
I'm not being mean to. I genuinely believe the character must have learning difficulties because she is. Some of the things that she does is extremely questionable.
I don't know.
One of them, an example of Ahsoka thinks, "Oh, we can't deliver the spice.
Oh my
the
god.
spice will be used to make drugs, and that will harm people." And the 30-year-old smoker, I can't remember her name, turns around and
Rafa.
says, "No, oh, Rafa, that's it." Rafa turns around and says, we gotta, it's money. We're just thinking about money. Ignore it or something." And then because they bicker, Trace turns around and ejects all the spice and says, "There, no one gets it."
Oh my god, I hate that scene so much.
And it's like the fucking.
It's weird.
It's bizarre.
It's weird. The first episode I really like. I think that the sisters are completely like inoffensive. They have some really cute moments. I like the part where Rafa is like, you're going to you pan in to see her, and she's like breaking into someone's locker, and then she covers it up. Like, it's very quick, and it's a cute scene. And also like the scene with the load lifter. Like, Trace is like, she's likable. She has some nice lines, but like it's weird. Like, after that episode, both sisters just completely tank in terms of writing. And the final episode, they do have some nice moments. I do like the part where Ahsoka says that she left, and then she's like, "Oh, I left," and then they're like, "Oh, you can do that?" Like, that was cute. But like, I wish that if those characters had more moments like that, it would have made them so much more bearable. And I think the key to that was just shorten it into 2 episodes. I think that if the whole arc just took place on Coruscant,
the episode that they break out, then they run around for a while, and then they get back in prison by the end of it, and nothing's achieved. There is that entire 20 minutes is just for
wasted.
Nothing.
It's
wasted screen time.
The whole episode only has 2 scenes that are important. It's the one where you learn about their past, which is a good scene that I like. And then you have
I think
the scene.
It's incredibly forced. I'd have to disagree there. I don't think it's a good scene.
I like it. I thought it was nice. And then you have confirmation that Bo-Katan is looking for Ahsoka. Not that she is looking for her, but that she happens to find her and she considers recruiting her. Those 2 scenes can be put in another episode. You don't need to have those. So that whole arc could just be completely removed. And if you really want to, you can take 2 and 4 and just contain them into 1 episode. You don't need to have a 4-episode arc. I feel even the most if you look back, every Clone Wars arc that was 4 episodes, excluding the droid story on Abafar, that each 4-arc story used its 4 episodes well. They used them very consistently, and they had a reason to use 4 episodes. This arc doesn't have a reason to use 4 episodes, and that also goes for the Bad Batch arc on an Axis, but to a lesser extent, I think that it could have been 3 episodes. Just because I think the 3rd episode is just we have to get off the planet, and it's just them backtracking. And I think that if they really wanted to, they could have just ended it at the 2nd episode and then gone back for the finale, off screen. We didn't really need to see that, but at least On the Wings of Kier Dax has good action, and it has great moments with Echo and Rex. So I kind of give that episode a pass, just because at least it is fun, even if it is kind of pointless. It makes use of what it is.
I think that when you have a very limited amount of episodes, you need to do more with them. Like every minute matters in your 20-minute episodes. About we've only got 12 of them.
Yeah. Like, what if I had a friend?
I would say if we're going to go talk about the Bad Batch episodes, I think it's prevalent to talk about how I don't actually think they are that great. They don't really add that much to like anyone's character, because the only purpose they really have is to make sure Echo's alive and set up the Bad Batch. The Bad Batch, they're all incredibly one-dimensional characters. They're basically the archetypes. You can pull them straight from Team Fortress 2. You've got the big guy with the big heart archetype who doesn't really have anything more going on. You have the moody sniper archetype that doesn't have anything else going on. Then you've got what is it? The tech guy who's just basically the medic from Team Fortress 2, who's also not really got anything more going on. And that's it. I actually think the Team Fortress 2 characters are better because they actually have more personality going to them. And it kind of feels like these are characters which are part of your first draft that you would have fleshed out a bit more, or like when you dug through them.
Yeah.
The only thing they really got going for them is that they do have a bit of a dynamic. Like, for example, the smallest detail is the fact that Hunter, Crosshair and Wrecker have a bit of a rivalry going on about how many droids they can kill, which is at least something. Yeah, I would say it helps define their relationship between these characters, that they do have a competitive nature, but it's very lighthearted. It's not malicious in any way.
I think the Bad Batch is really just meant to like get people back in the groove of the show. Like, it's really just, we need an action sequence that's just meant to be like bonding moments for like Rex and Anakin, and just kind of like to ease us back into Rex. And that's pretty much Dave's reasoning. Like, if you look up why they even resurrected that arc, this was before they confirmed Bad Batch, the show. Dave was like, we needed just something for Rex's character for us to more so sympathize with him, since we haven't been with him for a while, and just kind of like ease us back into his character. And that's also why they chose the Walkabout arc for Ahsoka, because it was also something for us to ease us back into Ahsoka's story. And
also, it's a bit strange that we go back into season 7, and yet and they go to the effort of reintroducing Rex. They reintroduce, and then they reintroduce Ahsoka. But then when they have the final episode, they have fanfare for like them all returning, in which it's a bit weird for them to do when we've already seen them earlier in the season, because most people are going to be streaming this. They're going to be watching this chronologically of like when the episodes are numbered.
I don't.
So when they go in and say they have the big fanfare for Obi-Wan Kenobi returning, I find that's strange for them to do if we've already been introduced to Obi-Wan and we saw him like a few episodes ago.
I think with Obi-Wan, that's like the only moment I would agree with. Like, I think with Rex, like when he sees R2, I think that moment was pretty casual for the most part. I think with Ahsoka, I think that moment wasn't really meant to be like, oh my god, guys, Ahsoka's back. It was more so meant to be like, Anakin and Ahsoka have reunited, and this is the first time they're seeing each other in who knows how long. And I really do like that moment for them. So like, I don't think that's meant to be like, guys, look, it's Ahsoka. She's back after like 8 years of seeing her. If you exclude Rebels at least. But I think with Obi-Wan, it's fine, because that moment is just meant to be like, he just saved Cody, and it's like a really great like set piece, I guess. And like, I could see that argument, but it's like, are you saying or is that the music in the background?
Oh, no, that's the music in the background.
Okay.
I thought the music would make it a bit more I don't know, just tone wise, I thought it would do better.
No, that's okay. I didn't know if you wanted to say something or not. But I think the Obi-Wan criticism's fair. It doesn't really bother me, but I think going back, I think it was meant to introduce like his new character model, because I think this is when he gets like the more gray hair. So it's kind of like meant to be like, this is Obi-Wan's new look for this scene. for like the prologue of the episode.
I
I
don't
think
think he's any different.
I think his
Looks-
hair. I think compared to the Anaxis arc, he already had the new outfit. He already has like he got rid of the clone gauntlets, but
Is there any
here-
gray on his face?
the sideburns have grayed like a little bit more, just to make it more accurate to Revenge of the Sith. So I guess
see. I wouldn't call that much of a change from the last character model. The fact that he's got a tiny bit more gray on there, which is just a small texture.
it's weird because what's funny is I noticed it the first time I saw it. So I think that's just because I noticed it, and that was my takeaway. But that may straight up just be me, because I was just like, oh my god, they changed the sideburns. That's cool. But that I don't know if that was the implication or if that was just something I noticed that I got out of the experience of the scene. But like I got something out of it. So like I guess that's what I guess that's just what I got out of it. That may just not be what they were going for.
So I guess if we're going to go into the Siege of Mandalore now, the main problem, at the very least, I have with the scene, and that we did point out, is Anakin's plan here at the bridge. So the plan. So for whatever reason, they're charging headfirst in a full frontal assault to try and basically get past the bridge. That's what they're trying to do in this scene, but. A suicidal frontal assault. I don't know why they're doing that, because it's basically a World War I tactic. It just seems incredibly dumb. That they think that the moment they get rid of the tactical droid, they would be able to overcome this. But I don't get why they think the tactical droid would be on the bridge. In fact, he shouldn't be on the bridge, because every other time we've seen the tactical droid, they're off in the city. They're in a citadel. They're well protected. They're on a ship, on a bridge, overlooking everything. They wouldn't just be on a random bridge.
We aren't given a good layout of Urbana, so I would.
Well, we know there's
a
city.
We are. We're given that.
Yeah. Well, we know that they want to liberate a city from the Separatists.
Okay.
I don't know if we can see it in the background.
I think it's just the bridge, but I guess this is just the holdout for the specific bridge. I think like that tactical droid is just assigned to that bridge, and
these super tactical droids, they're very valuable. These are not the kind of thing that you'd put in a small outpost. You'd keep this in your main battle center. Wherever you're planning, wherever you're doing your strategy, that's where you'd keep your super tactical droids.
I'm trying to think if there have been any other scenarios of a tactical droid on the front lines, but it is like I'm looking at the base right now, and it looks like I say base, but it's really just like the command center for the bridge. But for all we know, I don't think the tactical droid is on the bridge at this point. It may just be like
he is right there.
Well, I mean, like at that point, I'm saying, I guess maybe he was further down, being guarded by the droids in the background, because he says, "Oh, someone alert the tactical droid," and then he comes out.
I still think it's strange for him to be anywhere near this bridge. This is a massive campaign, because they've explained that there's the 501st doing another battle somewhere else. That in fact, even Obi-Wan was working on another front while Cody was taking control of this one. So the information that we're given, and I don't even think that there's any reason for why this tactical droid should be here.
I guess that's fair, but like for me, it's more like that's just like an unanswered question. Like for all we know, there is a reason, and it's just like this is the end of the battle. So I don't like. Usually for me, it's like there's probably a reason for it, and it really doesn't. It isn't relevant to the story at this point in time. So I just am kind of like, I'm sure there's some reason for it in universe. All that's important is it's here now. Let's focus on that and how to get to it. Because I think, like, let's say if Urbana was the focus of the episode, that tactical droid being there would be the focal point of the episode and, like, how it's there and what it's doing. But since it's not the focus, that's not what's important to the story. All that's important is that the tactical droid is here. And it's just it's meant to just be like a cold open to show Anakin's skill. So it being here isn't meant to be like the relevance of the story. It's just meant to be how to get it, not why it's here.
All right, I don't think that's a particularly strong reasoning of logic. I think this is something that is very out of habit to see battle droids. So the super tactical droid do, considering every other instance that we have seen the super tactical droid. However, I'll chalk it down to maybe it's just a bit weaker storytelling, and we'll say we'll give it the benefit of the doubt of that it serves a purpose in the story, and it's maybe just a bit weak.
Okay, I guess that's fair. I gave my 2 cents on it, but like if it still bothers you, that's completely fine. This, by the way, this is one thing that weirded me out when I first saw the episode. This isn't even a criticism, but it's weird how R2 moves in this scene when he's on like the bridge. That right there, when he's like 90 degrees, when his body is perpendicular to the legs. I've never seen an astromech move like that, and that just like caught me off guard so hard, because we never see a droid move like that, and obviously like it's reasonable to assume an astromech droid can do that, but I was always like, oh, we've never seen that before. That's weird. And then, but it was nice to see him again, because this is the only time he appears in season 7 of the show, it's nice to see him show up, and I like that he actually is present at the battle, which isn't something we've never really seen that before with R2. He's never been like in a battle, like as far as like being on the front lines. We saw it a bit in the movie with them on Christophsis, but that was like 10 years ago. So it's nice to see him actually like contributing and actually helping the clones.
So my next criticism about this scene would be the fact that there isn't any reason why Anakin had to put himself in danger on the bridge, walk directly to the center of it, and then lure out the tactical droid in order to basically have a bunch of people in jetpacks come out and throw grenades.
So basically with this, it was, if the tactical droid was still there when the 501st attacked, basically the droids would be able to pivot their forces, and then they would, they can react faster to the change in the directive. But since Anakin distracted the droid and then decapitated
it. Another point, very quickly, is also that considering the distance that Anakin is away from their forces, they shouldn't be able to hear him. He's a long distance.
Oh my god, that's because it's weird, because he's closer in other shots. That's probably just a continuity error, because it's in certain other shots.
Got to do to
because at that point, it's like, maybe he just used like Force Echo or something. I don't know. It's a new power we've never seen before.
Well, Force Echo would mean that he kills himself canonically, because every time we see it, they just instantly die.
Yeah. But I guess that's just a continuity error, just for the sake of the shot, just to show like the droids in the foreground or the background, excuse me. But I guess that's fine. I've never registered with that before, so it's just a smaller.
I think even if the tactical droid was in play in this scene, I don't think that it would make that much of a difference, because they're just throwing grenades on them, and they're basically just overwhelming them with jetpacks and grenades. That's like, they try to react, and I don't think the tactical droid would have been able to do much more in this particular situation. So it just, I don't know, the scene still doesn't make much sense to me, in the fact that what happened before wasn't really a requirement for this particular action to happen.
I guess it was just like the tactical droid, they could either retreat, they could react, they could you can do a number of things. If you really want, you can have the infantry fall back and then have like the tanks move forward. You can do a lot with that, but I think once the tactical droid was dead, you have the actual infantry reacting to how to handle the situation. I think if the 501st just attacked with the tactical droid there, they would have done damage, but I don't think it would have been enough to actually like win the battle. I think they would have just
I'm not sure
overwhelmed.
about that.
Really? Okay. I think they would have won the battle. Not won the battle. They would have overwhelmed them, and then I think they probably could have won, but it wouldn't have been like a confirmed victory. Like it would have been like in the bag for them. I think it would have just been they probably could have won it, where compared to before, the 212 was just going to lose.
Well, that's because they didn't have jetpacks and throwing down grenades. Because the only difference here in terms of what the 212 do and the 501st, like I don't even think the tactical droid makes any difference in this particular scene. That one of them was just running headfirst into artillery fire and blasters. The other one snuck under the bridge, used jetpacks, and jumped out and threw grenades at them.
Wait, what are you trying to say? That the
I don't think that. Well, we see the 212. They run up and they basically have a very dumb strategic plan of running at the bridge. They just basically run at it and run straight into artillery fire.
Okay.
That is all they're doing here. Look, they're just no cover, out in the open, artillery coming straight at them, killing tons of them. This is like Battle of the Somme level of tactics, where it's not particularly that bright, and they're wondering why they're losing. And the only difference that happens, there's no reason why the tactical droid basically makes it so they don't win this battle. I don't get how that's the thing stopping them, when it just seems more like their terrible tactics that are mucking them over.
Is it just because they don't have any cover? Like, I'm trying to think back, like with you have, like, for example, Saving Private Ryan, where you have the beach of Normandy, and it's just a flat beach. There's no cover whatsoever, and it's just the watchtowers of troops just firing down upon the transports of soldiers coming out from the ocean. And they have basically no choice but to charge forward because they have nowhere else to go. So they have to just keep pushing forward. And eventually they do get to a trench, but they have basically no cover here.
A bit different when we're talking about a naval invasion, which the plan is to just overwhelm them to the point where you can create a beachhead. And most importantly, the massive strategic gamble that was from the right term for it, the not tactical, not strategic. Anyway, the amount of resources and planning that went into Normandy was absolutely massive. And it was, I think it's a stroke of tactical genius, even if they didn't have any cover in that particular battle. This, however, doesn't air any kind of sane tactical strategy. Like, there are places that people could take cover in, like craters, or just there are probably better ways of getting around this issue than just charging your troops straight forwards. And as well as Cody, as TK says, they were told to run to cover, but they just don't. There's cover there. They could very least just lie on the ground, and at the very least they'd be covering more of themselves and not standing out in the open. There's more that they could do. They could even try to push forward some armored cover, which I suppose one of the ATT behind them got destroyed. But it doesn't make the 212 strategy seem that good if the only strategy they have is to run forward at them, which isn't even required for the tactical droid there to defeat them.
They could be just drawing the fire from the tank so the tank could move forward. Could that be a possibility?
As far as we see, the only tank we see is on the ground and destroyed, and there's two gunships behind them for some reason. Never saw that before. But there is a tank that appears later. I think, yeah, there it is. There's a tank right there on the move, and they didn't use that. Well, maybe they were keeping it safe, in fairness. But
they could have I could have seen them having like a like a frontal attack that is like their first wave meant to draw fire, and the second attack is like the tank coming in. And since they're
I'm not
focused
sure how
on
well that's going to achieve other than get a bunch of people dead, and then you've got less troops. And there's a lot of strategic fails in Clone Wars in general. There's lots of clones doing very dumb things like closing the distance for no reason against Jedi or Sith. And I don't know, it just doesn't... The strategies just don't ring sane or logical, or even in like a fictional sense. That the fact that these are fictional worlds that work very differently to our own.
I mean, I guess that's valid, but I'm not someone who's into like strategic planning, so like I just wouldn't know. All I can do is be like, well, I guess they're trying to do this, but that's pretty much it. Like that's the best I can do as far as that goes. I don't have like a background in like studying like Republic strategy, I guess.
All right then. What else? I'm trying to think of what else we comment, because there were a few small things throughout the episode, but I'm more trying to think of the big ones. For example, one of the ones that's kind of like puzzling is this scene here where Ahsoka openly shows affection towards R2-D2, giving him a little head pat because he's best boy, and then let me look at R2. He's a good boy. He's like a robot dog. I'd give him a pat. But then when it comes to Anakin, for some reason, she's very dismissive, almost like not wanting to even say hi to him, really.
I guess with Anakin, it was like he wants to talk. With R2, it was just a quick head pat, and like that was it. But with Anakin, it's like he wants to talk and catch up, and she's like, okay, we'll catch up.
She doesn't even look at him. She just walked straight. These two are like, they have a brother-sister relationship. In terms of their dynamics, they care very deeply about each other, and yet the first time Ahsoka sees him isn't, well, hi, how you doing, smile, like any kind of affection. It's just she says hi and walks past him.
I don't think it was out of malice. I think it was just like, we'll catch up, don't worry, but we gotta...
I don't think it's malice, but it's a strange scene. And I think Anakin's like, yeah, he's rightfully hurt, because like, why doesn't she want to talk to her old master? It's strange. Especially since she doesn't seem to have any problems with him, like at this scene. Like the moment after the two have gone, she's more than welcome to be nice with him.
Yeah, that's what's... Because she is nice to him here, and they are talking, and then afterward they are bonding and talking about what's happened since. But it was more so, I think the scene was just meant to show that Ahsoka is willing to move on, while Anakin is incredibly excited to talk to her, but she just doesn't want to talk about what has happened in the past. Like, I think if R2, for example, was going to talk to her, she would have been like, not now. I don't want to talk. Like, it was a very simple, like, it's good to see you.
To say that it's supposed to show that she's ready to move on, that's a bit contradictory to what happens in Rebels. In terms of if you're making a narrative arc for Ahsoka. Because, if we go by the Ahsoka novel, she's basically missing Anakin the entire time, and as well as everyone that she cared about, even Obi-Wan and Yoda. And throughout Rebels, she's shown to be, like, to obviously not have moved on and to be very emotionally attached to Anakin, which is why she even stays in the first place. So I'm still not sold on like what the scene's even trying to say.
I'm not saying that that's like the right, that was Ahsoka's right move. Like, it was the right thing for her to do, just to be cold to Anakin. It was just meant to be like, I'm still kind of like hurt that you guys left me. It's nothing personal. I am happy to see you, but we just gotta...
But Anakin didn't have anything to do with that. In fact, he was the one that stuck by her through the entire time. She was the one that actually fought her corner consistently. So, like, it would be understandable why she's a bit apathetic toward the Jedi Council. Maybe a little bit of against Obi-Wan because he is on the Council, even though he did fight her corner on the Council side. But with Anakin, she should absolutely have no bad feelings towards him. In fact, she even explicitly states that, thank you for helping me, but this has nothing to do with you when she leaves.
I guess she just didn't want to get like sucked in emotionally, because it was like Anakin was like so ready to like rant and talk with her. Like with I keep going back to like with R2. It wasn't like he was like beeping and being all excited. It was just like he rolled up to her, she gave him a quick head pat and moved on. Like with Anakin, like he wanted to talk and he wanted to just like talk like about.
It's not even just talking. She doesn't even look at him. She glances at him once and then just walks straight past him.
I could just chalk that up to just nerves, just being like overly anxious, because this is someone like she hasn't seen in, I would assume, like a year, or at least like months of just not being with her. So I guess it's just like she's so nervous to see her brother that like she can't even look at him, because it's just like it's this surreal experience for her. Like I think that's realistic to have, like a realistic reaction to have to someone that like you're so overwhelmed with a feeling that like you're just so nervous to even like stare at them, just because it's this weird thing you're not used to anymore.
I'm not quite sold on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I just struggle to see any reason. I think there was something in this scene. They make a point that this would, if they try to make a move against Mandalore, they would essentially be starting another war. I don't exactly know with who exactly, because the only people they're invading is Mandalore.
Well, they go and get
in the
into
Clone
a war.
Wars, there is a league of neutral planets in which Mandalore represents, and they're like kind of like a very important member of. But when Mandalore stops being so pacifist and peaceful and goes off the deep end with being militaristic, I'm not entirely sure. Like, how do those planets react? Because we don't have anything on them; they're never mentioned. So I guess we have to assume they're either not important enough to mention, or they just, I don't know, they're not relevant.
I would assume they're talking about the crime syndicate that Maul assembled. Like if they challenge Mandalore, which is basically the planet that is secretly like organizing this shadow collective, if they try to go after Maul will organize his military operation of like the Black Sun, the Pikes, the Hutt cartel that he has control over, like their space trade over. He would organize that into, like, I would assume an offensive strategy where he would challenge them to war, and that would be an entire new like Sith that they would have to deal with. I would assume they're talking about that.
I don't know. They don't really make it clear entirely what is, because they mentioned that it's specifically because they're breaking treaties with Mandalore, not the crime syndicates. They don't mention the crime syndicates, just these treaties.
Well, he said like we would be sucked into another world war and these treaties. So it's like it's more
no. If we do this, we're breaking treaties that are decades old, and that we would effectively be drawn into another war, which is implying that it's not the Shadow Syndicates, that there's a legal issue in these treaties that would cause a war with someone, I assume Mandalore, and someone, I don't know.
Then if that's the case, I guess Mandalore on its own could challenge them, because they're clearly powerful enough now too.
Are they? Like, because half a legion of clones and some Mandalorians managed to basically wipe out the entire Mandalorian defense.
But then they can. This is going back to Maul. He can call upon the Shadow Collective, so he has like 3 armies worth of reinforcements. He has control over Hutt space. He has the Black Sun. He has the Pikes, who we have seen in like Book of Boba Fett.
I'm not entirely sure these crime syndicates are that much of a threat to the army of the Republic.
I mean, it could. I mean, I guess like theoretically they would be able to defeat them, but it's like it goes back to just wasting resources for something that would theoretically not even be an issue if they didn't even go to war in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And since they are challenging like control over Hutt space, which is something that you need to cross over in order to go to Mandalore, you would essentially be challenging the Hutts as well if Maul really wanted to twist that. So then you have the Hutt cartel to deal with. So
another thing that was mentioned with who mentioned? Oh yeah, Sophisticated mentioned that Mandalore feels more like a city and not like a planet. In which, yeah, they actually makes you think about like what are the other cities, like what's happening with them in particular.
It's more so just like Zendari is the capital, so that's like what the target is. Maul is associated
you
with
think
the capital.
If they have soldiers in other parts of the planet that they would call them in for this defense? Like there's a lot of elements here which I think should have been fleshed out a lot more. And I suppose going back to the whole war thing, Bo-Katan says something very peculiar in which she says, "What's another war on top of the one that they're already on?" It's a strange line, I would say.
It's meant to be like, oh, like what's one more to you Jedi, as in like you're peacekeepers, but you're fighting a war right now, which is hypocritical. So like, what's another war to you guys? Because at this point, you guys have already crossed the line. So it's like, obviously to Bo-Katan, it's like she's a warrior. Like fighting doesn't matter to her, but like to the Jedi, it's not honorable to be fighting battles like this because
I'm not sure pointing out hypocrisy in the Jedi Code, because if that's what the story's going for, she's like, well, she simply says what's what we would effectively be drawn into another war and what's one more. And at least I'm looking at that in the perspective of them talking about the actual physical cost of war. Of like the cost of war that they're doing the Separatists right now as an example, where Anakin's response is that they haven't finished the one that they've already started, in which that doesn't seem like they are in this conversation talking about the Jedi Code unless they're having two completely different conversations, which would be strange for the writers not to point out.
I think it's Obi-Wan saying like the Republic would get like drawn into another war, and then she's saying what's another war like to you guys.
What's one more?
What's one more to you guys? So it's like she's saying one more on top of the war they're already fighting. That's what I got out of it, and I think that's what other people have gotten out of it. So I think the implication is her referring to the Clone Wars, like the current galactic.
No, I know she's referring to the Clone Wars, but I just don't believe that she's referring to the Jedi as them being hypocritical.
Well, I mean, the Jedi are the ones who are, like, the generals of the Clone War. So, like, they're the ones who would essentially be leading.
But they're not the ones who are essentially... They're leading the war, but the war isn't against the Jedi, it's against the Republic. And I don't know, it's a very strange line for her to say, what's one more, if she is referring to the Jedi... Like that would be a dialogue issue, because that's not what's brought across. It's like you'd have to make it so she's very dead clear of that she's calling the Jedi hypocrites.
I thought she was. That may just be. I always just assumed she was talking about like when you're talking about the Republic. Like it's always meant to assume that like the Jedi fall under that umbrella, because it's like if the Republic gets
because they are part of the Republic, but
yeah, if the Republic gets sucked into another war, it would be assumed that the Jedi are going to be the ones fighting it because they're already leading the current one.
I'm just not even sure that she would be calling the Jedi hypocrites in this particular sense, because it would make sense for, let's say, Barriss Offee to call the Jedi hypocrites. But, like, what ground is Bo-Katan really standing on to say, yeah, what you're warmongers and you're hypocrites, and
I don't think that was her point.
yeah.
I think her point was just like, if you guys are so concerned about starting another war, but like you haven't even finished, like you haven't even brought up the topic that you guys shouldn't even be fighting wars in the first place. Like her topic isn't based
Okay,
upon.
I think that's a bit of a stretch. Because like she doesn't say that you shouldn't even be fighting wars in the first place. She just simply says, "What's one more?" And I don't know. At the very least, it just seems that you've taken something completely different out of this scene than I have, for which I don't see at all that that's what she's saying. I struggle to pull that interpretation out of her words.
I never even considered this as an issue, just because it's always been with people I've talked to about this scene, I've always just assumed, oh, it's just she's talking about the Clone War and the Jedi participating in it. That was just always what I got. I didn't think that, just because it's hard to argue, because it's just I can't think of any rebuttals, because I always just assumed that it would work out, because it's never something I considered to be an issue.
I think it's just a very strange dialogue choice.
If you're saying that, if you're saying that it wasn't I made clear enough, I guess that's fair. But to me, it was made clear enough. I got out of that, but it's completely fair if others think that it wasn't made clear enough through dialogue.
Yeah, I suppose here's the funny the bit. So this isn't a legitimate criticism, but it's something that we all. Oh, actually, that's a good thing TK said. It's a very terrible way to try and convince the Jedi to try and get on your side, to be antagonistic towards them.
I don't think she was being serious. I think it was just her being sarcastic.
She doesn't come across as serious. She sounds almost ominous, like "What's one more?" She doesn't say it in a jokey tone.
I mean, I don't think Obi-Wan would change his mind over that. I don't think he would be like, "Oh, you're a total bitch." Goodbye.
No, but if I was going to convince someone that I want to be nice to them, and I think the in terms of the one that I understand more is trying to appeal to Obi-Wan's connection to Satine. That makes a lot more sense to me, even if it's a bit of a dick move. I think it's in character at the very least. And I get what she's saying in those words. I don't get what she's trying to say in what's one more war, in the terms of how is that an argument? Because you don't want another war. You and Anakin is 100% right. Yeah, we haven't finished the one that we currently have. It'd be strange to, because that's the point that Obi-Wan is saying. We're going to be drawn to yet another war, and we haven't finished the one that we're in. It'd be very difficult to stretch our resources thinner than they already are.
Okay. I mean, it's completely fair if you think that. I don't really agree with it, but if you, I think it's valid to bring up that statement.
Okay. So this is more of a something that we find as a funny scene, because it's not a flaw. It's not a structural problem, but I'm just saying, painting your helmet the color of a particular race of people, at least in the real world, would come across as very inappropriate. It's very unfortunate,
I guess, but I think Jolly talked about it a little bit, but here, first of all, Togrutas aren't. If Togrutas were all orange, I would at least be yeah, that's fair. As a real world equivalent, that would be very problematic. But the thing is that not all Togrutas are the same color, so they're not appropriating an entire
Well, but
race.
they still have like, well, it's not necessarily appropriating a race. Then, at the very least, it's appropriating a subspecies or a race of a race. It's at very least a skin color, which is at least unique to the Togruta, or that they're actively trying to copy.
Yeah.
Because I think Togruta, we've seen them come in red, orange, and perhaps blue, if I remember, once or twice.
I think they're green as well.
I
So,
don't remember seeing a green Togruta.
I think there was one in like season 4 of what's the word? Clone Wars, like the Zygerium, and I think there was like one.
So it's not an issue. It's mostly just a bit racially funny.
Okay.
And that goes for the same of what we were pointing out yesterday, where Obi-Wan sees a Zabrak and he immediately thinks it's Maul, which we were laughing our fucking asses off at that. I think Sheev Talk said it's a bit like seeing a black man in Target and thinking that's George Floyd.
Oh my god.
No,
I looked it up. I looked it up. There is a green Togruta.
Okay.
I was not imagining things. But I guess it's just like this isn't really a real world equivalent, because like aliens and what's the word?
Well, I would agree that it's not racism in the world of Star Wars, but to apply our own moral limits or ideas of what's racially inappropriate, the meta idea is essentially it would be racially inappropriate to do this.
Yeah, but
in the universe, I'm willing to say that it's fine, but it would be extremely hilarious. Because I remember when I first watched this with LitDev, the first comment he made when watching this scene would be Commander, General, we painted our helmets to look like you, and then Mace Windu turns around and just sees all the clones blackfacing.
Yeah, I remember Jolly talked about it, but I forgot what his argument was. But I think he said it was something along the lines of like, this is not like meant like blackface in our world. It was used as like a term of like degrading African Americans. It was a way of degrading black people back when it was like our culture was unfortunately like corrupt. Like that was what we viewed as a sense of humor. But here it's meant to be like a term of like support and like out of love. Like it's meant, and I don't think like Ahsoka would view that as an act of racism because she knows Rex as a person and what he
that's not even the argument I'm making, that she would view it as racism.
Yeah.
If we apply our own world standards to this, it would be considered very questionable. Even like, if we really do want to apply our own sense of this, Anakin commits is essentially a war crime. It's a breach of the Geneva Convention, if I think I'm remembering that correctly, where he falsely surrenders to an enemy force with the full intention of tricking them. Over here in our real world, that's a war crime. He committed a war crime by our standards.
Yeah, but like with Star Wars, war crimes have always been like a staple of the culture. So it's like I always just assumed that war crimes to them aren't the same to us. Like it's not like a 1-to-1. We have the exact same rules.
If you want to make that same argument, let's say, because we have to morally look at things from our own sets of morals of what we have today, because in theory, the idea of slavery was very normalized in, as I say, 500 years ago, or 300 years ago, 400 years ago, whatever, like what time period, whatever time of slavery that you want to point out, by whatever culture to whoever, that was culturally fine at that time, right?
Yeah.
But to us today, that wouldn't be considered culturally fine, but we would still judge them with our modern standards. Just like I think, really, morally, we should be judging Anakin by the fact that, by our standards, he committed a war crime.
Oh no, yeah, that's fair. I just think that it's like saying like, this isn't okay that they didn't talk about this, and like it's not.
No,
fair
I don't think it's more of a meta item on the board, where again, like, this is a meta item with the racially inappropriate thing. That's got nothing to do with the in-universe lore. There is obviously no orange facing in the history of Star Wars, but if we apply our own standards, it is inappropriate.
Yeah, like I don't think like when people are like, oh my god, Chopper from Star Wars Rebels committed like 7 war crimes and should go to jail for it. I don't think they're being serious. I think it's just like more like a fun thing to talk about, which is fair because like fuck Chopper, but I I don't like it when people are actually like they bring it up as like an example of legitimate criticism and something that can be used against it, but for people who just use it like as like a joke or like, oh, this is interesting to compare to our world, it's totally fine. Like I'm completely fine with that.
Okay. Right, moving on to the next item on the list. This conversation between Obi-Wan and Ahsoka. How do I word this nicely?
Oh no.
Ahsoka is a bit of a feckless asshole in this, especially towards Obi-Wan. This is a strange conversation. The capital of the Republic is under attack, and this is a very important battle. Imagine Vietnam comes along, and from the other side of the world, they have nothing to do with America. In fact, they've told America repeatedly to fuck off. But now China is invading them, or that's something terrible has happened, and they want America's help. But at the exact same time, Washington D.C. is under attack. America has no obligation to Vietnam in this theoretical situation to do anything for them, especially when they have something much worse going on. So it's strange that Ahsoka judges that by the standards. The capital of the Republic's under attack. There are people's lives in danger. If the Chancellor Palpatine was captured, this would be a horrible thing to happen in terms of it could cost them significantly because he's the head of state. That's like the president of the United States getting captured. That is a huge thing. Imagine that being on the news. That'd be a historical event for the prime minister, the president, the prime minister to get captured.
For Ahsoka, it's like less about the people. It's more about like the fact that the Jedi she's using it like it's weird to say, but she's basically just strawmanning Obi-Wan in the scene. But with her, it's kind of justified because she does have a point. She just isn't saying it like the right way, I guess. But
I guess I could say that the point is not valid in this situation at all. But I get what they're trying to go for at the very least. That they wanted Ahsoka to see that the Jedi being so focused on the war means that they forget about people, right? That they forget about the everyday people that they were supposed to help and protect. That is a valid point to make, but it's a very dickhead thing to do to bring that up to Obi-Wan when it doesn't apply to the situation, because the capital's under attack. There are people living there. In fact, 2 of her friends live on Coruscant who might get injured because the whole planet is under attack. Because, well, I don't know how they show it in canon, but at the very least in the original Clone Wars show, they were seeing that there were ground battles happening. It was a massive battle that took place in the streets. This is a very strange point to make, that they aren't focusing on helping the people, because they are helping the people. The people are in danger on Coruscant. In fact, it's their own citizens that they're worrying about over Mandalore.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. It's just more so Ahsoka, like when Obi-Wan says that, oh, you're not being fair, and she says, I'm not trying to be. It's not so much like, oh, Ahsoka's not being fair here. It's like she's not trying to be. Like she's reasonably annoyed at Obi-Wan specifically.
So she's acknowledging that she's being bad faith towards Obi-Wan.
It's a metaphor for us.
It's a theme.
It's a theme.
But I just really don't like that's the characterization they go with for Ahsoka, that she's just openly bad faith towards someone that's her friend and that she's relatively close with for the past 3 years. To treat him like that, I'm very questioning about it. I don't think it helps her characterization.
Okay.
So,
I think that's fair.
so just quickly to talk about the super chat. So $5 from Sam Montgomery.
You're literally just throwing away money. What are you doing?
All right. So Obi-Wan, when he sees a swole yellow Zabrak, Darth Maul. Though to be fair to Obi-Wan, he's smarter than the armed clones running right up to Savage. Yeah, the clones in that episode, they run they see a guy with a metal staff, no, metal axe, and they see him smashing people, and they think the best thing to do is to run directly towards him and die.
Who is that? That's Commander?
That's Maul. Oh.
No.
I don't think the commander's named in the show, but I think he does have a name canonically.
No, he does have a name canonically, but I remember I remember that argument years ago. It was in like a top 5 worst clone troopers thing. People were like, "Oh, that guy was dumb," and then one of the comments actually did give like a somewhat legitimate reason, and I just don't remember what the argument was. So if I didn't remember it, it's probably not important. His name was Commander Trauma.
Well, I'm sure he experienced a lot of trauma when he got shattered.
Yeah. No,
He
literally
does shatter as well. Like his armor shatters into pieces.
Yeah. I literally I looked up the video to find it. That's literally the first comment. The top comment is, "Guess you could say Trauma had major head trauma."
Sorry, Sophistic Autistic randomly atted me in Mauler's Discord to tell me it was trauma. But we read your comments, Sophistic Autistic. You didn't need to at me in Mauler's Discord, or you could literally just message me in Discord at the very least.
Yeah.
Directly. All right. So I think this is fine in terms of this. I think it's a bit strange that Anakin changes her lightsaber colors to blue, considering the lightsabers were perfectly fine before.
Yeah.
At the very least. But I think it's a nice scene. There's nothing wrong with it that I remember.
They actually use the same music for when Ahsoka's about to leave the Order, so they use the exact same motif.
Really?
Yeah, it's before Obi-Wan comes in, and it's shot the same way as when Anakin's giving her Padawan braid. So it's meant to be basically like a 1-for-1 recreation of.
Oh, I thought you talked about the music.
No, it's the music and it's the cinematography.
Oh. No, so listening to the music right now, I don't think you can hear it. It's not the same music as when she leaves the Order.
Oh, no. I mean before Obi-Wan comes in, when he says, "Oh, I have something else for you," and then he gives the box to her, and then right when she's about to take it, the alarm goes off, and then Obi-Wan comes in. It's that moment. And then when she actually opens the box, it's Yoda's theme.
Yeah, I'm not hearing...
It's like a...
So the music's not the same as when she's left the Order.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, it's not. Like, the closest you can say is that it's orchestral.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not the same themes.
Okay.
And for one, that theme's much more sadder, and I don't hear it at all.
All I remember is that it was like a...
Yeah, it's not there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was what
At the very least, I can't hear it, and I remember that music very well.
Okay. I'm gonna have to resend that then. Okay.
So this is more of it's not necessarily a writing issue, it's more of a fight choreography issue in this scene, or at the very least the way that they've written the fight scene. So I think strategically this is another massive fumble, because they send all their gunships down with very little support. They don't use any bombers to weaken up the defenses. And we know they have bombers, but they don't use them, and they don't have any that use any fighter aircraft to run defense to make sure that all these landing craft are fine. They just send down the landing craft, and that's it.
Would bombers be like a little more what's the word? Would they be more difficult to use since this is like a civilian planet? So just like bombing.
the thing is, the civilians are almost completely forgotten about in this, because the civilians would absolutely get caught up in the crossfire of this battle, but they're never shown in this battle until the very end. I think that's probably something that they don't take into account. But bombers, regardless of civilians being there or not, I would be fine with them using them to soften up the defenses, because that's something that, you can at least point to history and even point to real modern day, where it's like, okay, well, we have to take into account that there will be some level of civilian casualties, but the bombers would be to soften up their defenses in order before they have this assault.
Okay.
So yeah, they just send all this gunships in, which I'll talk about. It's just, I don't think it's a very good strategic move. They then have the battle is that all the Mandalorians shoot rockets, and this is something which is a visual inconsistency, that none of the Mandalorians have rockets on the back of their jetpacks other than Saxon, which you probably heard from TK already, but when he brought that up after I noticed it.
Don't most Mandalorians have rockets on their?
So as I don't know if we can get a good shot of the jetpacks, but the jetpacks are the same model. Like, there we go. That's Bo-Katan's one. These are all the same model, by the way. So you can see they're all just fuel tanks. There is no rocket, and the rocket is very visually different. And it's a physical rocket. It's not like an energy.
I always assumed that the middle cylinder was the rocket, like that little part right there.
It's a fuel tank.
Okay, I always thought
we
that
can
was
tell.
the rocket.
Because if you look at Boba Fett, for example, and look at Gar Saxon, he very obviously has a rocket that's separate to his fuel tanks. That's a fuel tank. That's a rocket. These might be something else. I don't know. But he physically fires it. Look. In a sec. There we go. He physically fires the rocket, and it's gone. It's a physical rocket that leaves the jetpack.
Yeah.
But none of the other Mandalorians have that. But yet they all fire their rockets.
Well, Rook has one. Her, the female Mandalorians, they have different ones. They actually have a distinct, protruding.
Oh, the female Mandalorians do have a separate jetpack, and they have these weird bulbous helmets. Trying to see if I can get one here, but they actually don't have. There we go. There's one. They don't have rockets still.
There are some that do have rockets, as a middle section.
They're all the same. Rook has the same jetpack as this.
Really?
And she doesn't have rockets on the side of hers.
Can you replay that sequence again? Because I think I did see one. That may have just been an animation error, but not of Saxon's, the one take with Saxon.
All that?
It was that scene right there, yeah. So I was certain I saw a rocket, but it may have just been the framing of the one that I thought that maybe the one on the side, it looked like it was the one in the middle. But
yeah, the fact that they all fire rockets, but yet they're I'm sure there are other choreography issues that I remember picking out in this fight with the others, but they're not very relevant to the actual writing. So there's actually a much bigger issue in this episode.
Could they have been wrist launchers? Because we do know that they have wrist rockets. Or is it
the ones that were shown? I think they're definitely supposed to be implied that they're from the backpacks. Oh, here's another scene. Yeah, you get Rook. There's Rook's
okay.
well.
That was that was probably just me just looking at it differently, and I just didn't see it right.
I think the inference at the very least is that it's supposed to be coming from the jetpacks. So we do see that a bit later as well, that they fire from the jetpacks and not have anything there. But we're not into the big issues yet, because there's a big issue about to come up by the end of the story.
Okay.
But here we go. Rockets. So all these rockets, I think it's very much you're supposed to assume that they're from the backpacks of the Mandalorians.
Okay. I mean, I guess there may be just a separate attachment for the rockets. There may be I guess it may attach to the top of it that we just never see, but I guess like
it's more of a visual inconsistency because, as
Okay.
I've stated multiple times, because it's just that it wasn't picked up in previs. They never modeled a new jetpack for it. It wasn't the job of animation, and it wasn't the job of FX artists.
Okay.
So this is more just a visual inconsistency that I brought up and TK mentioned. All right, I don't remember anything happening here. But there's a problem here as well. I can get to it. Oh yeah, I suppose maybe we'll get to this. No, we'll wait. So the moment the rocket hits, I saw the lighting's good though. I like the lighting in this. So they reveal themselves. They shoot a rocket from over the shoulder, which is supposed to be coming from the jetpack. Ahsoka blocks out the way, and almost immediately all the clones run off. And I'm just going to pause again just because of copyright, so it doesn't... What? Oh no, did we play too much Clone Wars? Oh shit, they might have taken us down for that.
Uh-oh. What happened?
I'm gonna have to see it. It says I'm still live.
I see the live button still.
No, but it might have. Oh, okay. So it's temporarily blocked us because. Okay, so we I'll remove the footage, and hopefully it'll lax on us. I've got no idea.
Okay. All right, that's fair, but what were you saying with the clones running off?
We'll wait for a while.
Okay, no problem.
Just until it comes back.
Okay.
Didn't even send me a warning. That was a weird thing. They sent me an email. Okay, 2 minutes ago they sent me a notice. I'll try to avoid from playing the actual video itself. Nope, we're still dead. Oh, I think we're back.
Okay, good.
All right. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll just use frames and we won't use we won't play the thing.
Okay.
All right. That sound good. I think that sounds good. So we'll share the screen again. So whatever we're gonna do, I'm not gonna press the play button. Just gonna scroll through it. Okay. So in this scene in particular, the rocket hits them. And they then all the clones run off, despite the fact that they're not supposed to. But there's an issue here, particularly in the choreography. When Ahsoka runs around the corner, basically the clones are shooting. I wish I could play the fucking scene, but I can't because they're going to take me down again. The clones are shooting at people, but Ahsoka can't see who they're fighting. And then the moment she turns around the corner, they're already like dead. But then every time she turns the corner, there's more clones dead.
Wait, I don't understand what the issue.
Okay.
Is it that we don't see the bodies?
No. It's not that we don't see the bodies. We are back. There we go. The issue isn't that we don't see the bodies. Is that it's in terms of scene consistency, it makes no sense. Because the clones are moving in one unit. They'll then go forwards. But the way that they've done it, they've somehow split them up, and yet the Mandalorians are behind them at the same time, shooting at them, and that doesn't make any sense, especially with how we're shown. I wish I could show it, but I know YouTube is probably not very happy with it at the moment, so we're going to keep it quiet. We're not going to.
They could have split up and like broken into like pairs.
I don't buy that.
Because the Mandalorians, when Ahsoka sees Vaughn's corpse and she like is with them, the Mandalorians come from different sections, so the clones could have broken up and then be just in different subsets of the sewers, because I don't think we end up seeing every single body. So it could have just been that they went into different.
But it doesn't make sense how, because this is happening in quick succession. Like, this is almost immediate. The troop, she turns the corner, and that was just. No, I don't. I'm scared. You've got me scared already, YouTube. All right. Turns a corner. These two soldiers are shooting at someone. She turns around, dead. She should be able to see who they're shooting at, but the moment she like runs forwards, there's no one there. There's no one shooting them, but yet there's a clone right there that was from the exact place that they were being shot at, and then he dies. The exact same thing then happens again.
Okay.
And again, I think it happens about 3 or 4 times. In the scene coherency, it makes no sense. There is no one shooting at them that we can see. In the exact same scenes that we can see, there's no one there. And like, it doesn't make it's just a mess of a scene.
Okay.
Especially if this is happening in quick succession.
Okay.
Make sure they haven't taken it down. No, we're fine. We're fine still.
I guess that if you wanted to have it so like the sewers had several, it's hard to explain it because it's just something to visualize. So like, let's say there are 3 cross sections. So you have Ahsoka running, and then the first cross section you have the clone shooting, and then he gets shot. You run down, it could have been that Mandalorian could have been waiting at the second cross section. She passes it, and then she's focused on the first the second clone that is getting fired upon. That's the third cross section. So it could have been like an in-between, I guess, but we don't see that. Which I guess is fair to criticize, that you don't actually see that subsection, that individual crosswalk.
I think no matter what way you try to split it in terms of trying to make it make sense, it visually is extremely inconsistent. It's just a very it's a very poorly shot scene.
Okay.
Because it's all about how you're conveying information to the audience, and there is no other information than Ahsoka turns a corner, clone is dead. The next camera shot, there is no one there where Ahsoka is running towards, where the shot came from, but there's another clone trooper who's then going to get shot, and then the same thing happens again and again, and it's visually sort of a big issue. But there is, we'll get onto the biggest issue in this episode, or in the story in general. So what this guy says, what was his face?
Almec?
Prime Minister Almec. What Almec says is he very clearly says that, you know, you were supposed to come here, but you were supposed to bring the Jedi, but you brought the wrong one. And it's very clearly stated that Maul wanted Kenobi and Anakin to turn up. So we're following?
Yes.
Maul explicitly wants Obi-Wan and Anakin to turn up, specifically because he wants to kill Anakin. So this entire thing was planned. The problem is is that Maul hasn't done anything in order to make this happen. Because we get the info. Okay, I think if I remember correctly, it was Gone Without a Trace, the episode where they get Ahsoka basically tracks Maul and she knows where he is, which then leads into this episode. Maul did not leak that information purposefully. It is out of the whim of Ahsoka, which he obviously doesn't want to come, and out of the whim of Bo-Katan, which I suppose he would know about, but like I don't. He hasn't been involved with her to the point where she would call Obi-Wan and Anakin's help. It doesn't make any sense how he planned this.
I think that Bo was already planning on a siege. She just didn't have the resources, and Ahsoka was just...
But what would make Maul, basically, the only thing Ahsoka brings to the table is the fact that she knows Maul is on Mandalore because that's where the transmission came from.
I don't think Ahsoka was ever, like, part of the plan. It was just, like, Bo was, I guess, planning a siege. She ended up on Obadiah for some reason, and then...
But
I guess
as far as, well, Maul knows, why would Bo-Katan even go to... Like, how is Maul's tried to structure these events in order for Obi-Wan and Anakin to turn up? But the whole reason for the invasion has nothing to do with events that he's put in play.
I guess it's just like he knew Bo was planning a siege, and she would have to go to the Republic for help because she doesn't have the resources, and the Jedi that would happen to go is Obi-Wan because it's the most logical sense, and he...
How does that make the most logical sense that they would send Obi-Wan? There is lots of Jedi.
Because he's the one that has the closest attachment to Maul, and he's the one who knows the most about Maul. And we see in earlier...
Why did I send him? Because I think Mace Windu says explicitly that your involvement with Maul means that we don't want you to go after him. But at the same time, Maul was going to kill those innocents if Obi-Wan didn't come.
Yeah, but that was kind of something that they considered as I guess, the wrong course of action. Because, like, then later on...
The only reason why... So, back in Season 4, when we first learned that Maul is alive, or it might be Season 3, I think it's 4, because I think Season 3 ends with finding out that Maul's alive and Savage is going to go find him. And it's not until the beginning of Season 4 that Savage goes out and finds him. And that Maul basically comes back and he says, I'm gonna go and fuck up some shit. I'm gonna go. I'm holding these people hostage, Obi-Wan. I'm killing them, and if you don't come, I'm gonna kill all of them. And Mace Windu explicitly states that because of your attachment to Maul, because he killed your master, we don't want you going there. But unfortunately, you have to go there because he's specifically asking for you.
I mean, but it does make sense in the sense that Obi-Wan is the one who knows Maul best. He's already beaten him before.
But that's not the reason why. But that's not the reason why the Jedi Council would send him. That's the opposite reason, because he has too much of a history with Maul. He's already too involved for the Jedi Council's liking.
But he's fought him multiple times, and he has been to Mandalore already to rescue Satine. So it would...
I don't buy that. All these things the Jedi Council they hate attachments. They hate this getting messy. That, I believe, would make it less likely that they would pick Obi-Wan for this mission. If they would send him at all, if they would ever send any Jedi.
I mean,
because the whole, not just because it's not just the Jedi which has to approve this. This is also the Senate. This would be the Jedi Council starting a war with another state without any kind of legal checks and balances, which you can't do. This is like a general in the American Army randomly invading Mexico. You can't do that. That's illegal. So there is no reason why the Senate would believe that they had to help out Mandalore, especially since they've already Mandalore gave them the middle finger and told them to fuck off.
Mm.
So if they really wanted to play this card, it just makes a massive flaw that Maul was expecting any Jedi to come. He should not have expected any Jedi to come, and he should not have expected any kind of invasion. The only reason he would expect Obi-Wan to come if he laid down any kind of plans or he put anything into effect that he was in control of that would push the Jedi to come, but he doesn't do anything. He just sits there. And Ahsoka finds where he's on Mandalore, so he has no involvement in it. And keep in mind, this is also something which Maul wants to happen now, particularly because of all the bad dreams he's been having. That's what Olmec says. He's been having a sense of dread because he keeps having bad dreams. He keeps imagining something very terrible happening.
I mean, that's a fair thing to bring up. I guess I've never really thought about that before. I guess that's something that... Yeah, I guess that's fair. I've never actually even really considered it. I guess I just considered that, Obi-Wan would... Not Obi-Wan, that just Obi-Wan would come. And it was just something that Maul just knew would happen, like he just...
So the only way I would perceive that... Okay, if I was Maul, and I was in Maul's mind... I would believe the way that Maul would try and lure Obi-Wan is the way that he's lured Obi-Wan before, in that he takes a hostage or that he does something. And funny enough, if he had a particular girlfriend hold hostage, that would be a very useful thing. Shame he killed her, but hey, I guess he wasn't thinking about it at the time. He just thought about doing making Obi-Wan feel some pain. But Maul would need to do something that would preempt Obi-Wan to come, and that instead someone else came, which he wasn't happy about.
I guess, I always just assumed it was just because Obi-Wan has dealt with Maul and has had experience in the sense that, he was with Adi Gallia on Florum when it happened. He already went to Mandalore. So I guess,
all these are emotional attachments with the Jedi do not like, and that they've said explicitly that they don't like Obi-Wan's history with Maul to send him to deal with it.
But you do also need a Jedi who is capable enough to handle it, and Obi-Wan is considered one of the most talented Jedi.
He is one of the most talented Jedi, but there are also other Jedi that could take on Obi-Wan. No, take on Obi-Wan, take on Maul. So it's... Well, especially if we're going by Ahsoka here, because Ahsoka, we know, at the very least, holds her own against Maul, and she, being generous, has the training of a Jedi Knight. If you want to get technical, she never really became a knight, but they do say that she passed her great trials in the end of the episode, which you could say that makes her a knight, but at the same time, you could say it was given to her because they felt bad, which wouldn't necessarily be deserving. It would be a pity trophy, a pity promotion.
Pity promotion.
Yeah. So I find it extremely questionable that she would ever be able to hold herself to Maul, considering this guy takes on Sidious, he takes on Count Dooku, he takes on Jedi Masters. I don't think Ahsoka would hold a candle to him. This would be because right now she's possibly on the same level as Kanan Jarrus is in Rebels, because Kanan Jarrus is the training of a Padawan, but he hasn't done anything in a while.
Okay.
So he's at that point he's a low level Jedi Knight in terms of his power level, which means Vader could come in and completely body them.
Okay, that's fair. I still don't know if I agree with it 100%, but I can see where you're coming from in that sense. It's just convenient that it just happened, and I think that's a completely fair criticism.
I don't think I wouldn't call it convenient. I would say that there's just no reason why Maul would think this was going to happen, or that he would think that Obi-Wan would come in and fight him. He has no reason to think that. He has no reason that he put into motion. So it's not convenience to me. It's just simply that he has no reason to say that he planned it.
Yeah.
He has no reason to think anything. This is, as far as Maul should be aware, this is something that he could have guessed, like he could have prepared for, but he wouldn't know was happening right now. In which, according to his own motivations of what he states and what Almac states, that doesn't make sense. Well, it doesn't make sense in comparison to. If we take what Almac is saying and what Maul is saying as 100% fact, it doesn't align with what we have seen and how these events take place.
Okay. That's fair.
What else? There was the fact that Obi-Wan states that Sidious... I can't remember. TK would have to speak about the criticism. I remember it was more him criticism than mine. I didn't really think about it that much. If TK is still in the chat, he can tell me. About something about Sidious. But I think there was I think I remember it being valid. He goes through Jesse, interrogates Jesse. Almac gets interrogated. He gets shot. There's one small thing here that I remember being quite funny is that when Almac dies, Ahsoka essentially just lets him fall on the ground. Like this guy, he might be a bit of an asshole. He might have even accidentally poisoned children and not really gave a shit. But
accidentally, like, that was intentional.
He didn't intentionally poison children. He just essentially allowed corruption to happen.
Okay. But I mean, to be fair, she was like overcome with like the idea that Anakin is probably going to, like, that Anakin could have died if he was the one who came there. So it was more so just like shock. It wasn't more so like I let him fall.
But I just think it's funny. 1 second. Look as well. Oh god, I can't play it annoyingly because otherwise they're gonna take us down. Fucking YouTube. So TK, what was the criticism that you said about Sidious being mentioned in particular? Damn it, we just... There we go. He just falls over and he's just doesn't even help him. And I don't think, like, if you die, do you like fall over onto yourself? You'd like fall backwards wherever your weight is going. Which his weight would be on the back. Yeah, I need to be extremely careful about playing this. Oh yeah, there's the jetpack scene, which makes no sense. It's pressing right up against her neck. Like, she... They need to stop her from... So the writers in this scene need her jetpack to stop working, so they throw her under a elevator, and she uses her jetpack to stop herself from getting crushed, despite the fact that there's an area to her right that she could easily... left, she could easily jump into.
Wait, I'm confused. I thought she was just using like the jetpack as momentum, not like it was pressing against her neck. Like I don't see like the contact.
Okay, so the jetpack is essentially she's trying to stop herself from getting crushed right now, and in order to try and stop herself from getting crushed, she uses her jetpack to push up, and what's touching the. But the jetpack isn't touching the elevator. It's not going directly into her. The force is going into her arms and into her neck right now. She should not be strong enough in order to stop this elevator from working to the point where it breaks it. That's what happens. So it's the way that it's pressing down on her and the jetpack's overloading. She should be crushed. Like, see what I'm talking about here?
Yeah.
I don't believe that her arms and neck are strong enough to use the force of the jetpack to stop herself from being crushed by the elevator to the point where it breaks.
Okay. I guess like in like a fictional like sense, it's fine because we've seen in the past that like our physics are not one-to-one with this universe. So
people still have physical strength in the Star Wars universe. People can still break bones. They're not made of super dense materials. That they're essentially got the same weaknesses as us, unless you're Darth Maul and you can survive getting cut in half. But the same injuries would still happen because, essentially, biologically speaking, they're still human.
Okay.
And they relatively work on the same rules that a human would work on. When we talk about Star Wars physics, it's mainly talking about the technology or the force in which it does establish itself being... the world does work differently, and like you don't need to put backwards thrust in order for your spaceship to stop. Like, it just comes to a stop by itself the moment engines go off.
Okay.
That is in terms of Star Wars physics. But I even in Star Wars physics, I don't buy that she's not at least snapping her neck and getting crushed here. Or that she would survive this situation at all. Oh yeah, the fact that Maul sacrifices his entire... So Maul knows Order 66 is going to happen soon. He knows that the Republic is going to fall, and he's going to need to go in hiding. Why does he sacrifice his most important pieces in order for him to escape?
You mean the Mandalorians?
Yes. The Mandalorians are Maul's most important asset. Like, they are so important that they even managed to break him out of Darth Sidious's jail, which is actually a good point to bring up. The last time we see him in the Clone Wars, we see Maul getting captured by Sidious, but then he's magically back, in which I think they only state that they saved him from Sidious, and we saw it in a comp. But I don't think that's enough in terms of continuity. At the very least, it should have been something that was seen in a previous episode. Like, as we said, we didn't need an extra 2 episodes for the Maz sisters. We could have just cut them out and then gave Maul a few episodes, or at least one.
Mm. They allude to it a bit. They say like, "Oh, you saved me."
Yeah, they say that in a line, which I acknowledge.
Yeah.
That they do address it, but at the same time, I think it's a bit strange that we see Maul getting captured, and the next thing that we see of him, he's perfectly fine.
Yeah. Read the accompanying comic, Son of Dathomir.
Was that you reading that out, or was that you telling it to me?
No, that was me just saying it. I was saying it like as like a meme.
All right. Are you saying it as a meme? I thought you're either serious or that you were reading a comment on the YouTube.
No. I wasn't reading it, but I was saying it as like a joke.
Yeah. All right. As long as it's a joke and you're not saying that seriously, I think we're fine.
No. By the way, after this episode, I may have to tap out just because I have some stuff to do. But
okay, so I'll try and
I at least want to get to like the halfway point of this arc.
Okay, so so Maul sacrifices his most important pieces, and without playing the scene, I can't remember all the problems that happen in it. I think mostly, if I remember back to the watch together, I think it was choreography mostly that we took a problem with, in terms of that we don't think Ahsoka should be able to hold herself compared to Maul. And the fact that Maul basically sacrifices all of his troops.
He did. I mean, to be fair, it's just like a sacrifice he has to take, because he does have the three other armies he can rely on,
but none of them are anything compared to the Death Watch.
Yeah, but I mean, this is either it's just like a risk he has to take, because it's either that or he gets captured, which ends up happening.
This is actually another issue which I only just thought about. So, according to Maul's own logic, he lured the Jedi and the clones to the capital city, right? And he does it specifically because he wants to kill Anakin. But it turns out that because Anakin isn't there, he's now wasted all of his troops, all of his good troops, on a venture that was completely fucking pointless. Like, he is in his attempt at luring the Jedi here, he's lost his most valuable asset, and I think that's incredibly dumb for him to do.
Well, when you say the most valuable asset, as in like the Mandalorians?
Yes.
Okay. I just think at this point he's just accepted his loss, and his only goal now is just to escape, because that's.
He also keeps trying to get Ahsoka to his side, in which Ahsoka basically just tells him to. He says, I'll join you. Just tell me why you want Anakin." He says, "I want to kill you," and then he's like, "Yeah, I'm not for that." And then she says no, which I don't think she was ever gonna join him, but she was obviously trying to get at him to wonder why he was going. And from a writing perspective, they just wanted him to exposit a bit. There is obviously this scene where I don't think it makes sense. The fact that Maul doesn't just cut the beam and she'd be dead, but at the same time, I think Ahsoka. It's dumb that Ahsoka doesn't jump backwards onto the beam behind her, which she could absolutely jump that distance right now.
I have talked so much about this scene. I really don't care about it. It's just so much. Like, it's such like a needlessly stupid thing where it's like, that's dumb, but like it didn't ruin my enjoyment of it, and it's completely valid, but like it's not worth fighting over. It's just like, yeah, it's dumb. They could have done it better. There are like some small fixes to it, but like it really doesn't matter as far as like the overall thing, like the overall like enjoyment of the story for me. Like, that's just not something that I like.
I think it's a bit contrived in terms of events in order to try and push the scene to a close.
I guess, like, if you really wanted to, she could have just like jumped over him and then force pushed him off.
Well, I don't even think that she should have done that. I think the most immediate thing is, because if she jumps over him, she risks of getting Anakin or mauled and just cut in half. So that's the wrong thing to do. Ahsoka can most definitely, the moment Maul jumps over her to get to there, and she's been disarmed, she should jump back onto this beam.
Okay.
But that's pretty much the news. And one thing I will say though is that Sam was really giving it his all when he's screaming, and it always still gives me chills to this day. Where he's like, "You know what you're doing? We're all going to die."
You know, I love this scene.
Well, yeah. Well, I was going to talk about the things that TK brings up. So I can speak on this now. How are they not suspicious of the inhibitor chips, given that they all know, like they know that Tyrannus is Dooku and that he funded the clones and that Sidious played both? That is essentially talking more about the Clone Wars in general issue. The fact that I think it's with the season 6 arc in particular that they then learn about the clones and the inhibitor chips, but they don't do anything. Both sides of the war, and they know that he's funded the clones and that he's controlling both sides of the war, and they're not suspicious at all. Or they just ignore it.
I think what they assumed the wrong thing. They thought that what Sidious's end goal was to create a war and give the Jedi an army and diminish the view of the people of the galaxy, like their view of the Jedi, which was one of his goals, but they thought that was his only goal. So they kind of they got halfway there and they stopped.
But then they also have one of the clones which tries to accidentally executes their general, which we know the Jedi Council is fully aware of.
But they're given an explanation as to what they are. Like, they say that the scientists were able to...
I don't... But the scientists give them the explanation. The same scientists who they know were ordered by Count Dooku in order to make the clones.
I forget who did it, but I remember Palpatine saying that someone looked over it. But I forget if he said it was the Kaminoans or not. But they say that it was a virus.
They say it was a parasite. That's what they claimed.
A parasite that made the chip malfunction, and the chip's purpose is to just make the clones not as aggressive, which is a completely valid explanation, which obviously we know is not true, but to the Jedi, it's a somewhat... It would be a reasonable conclusion to come to. Yes, this is very insignificant. It's just as significant as something like accelerated aging. Because, oh my god, I'm pulling up the episode right now just to see what he said who... Because it may have been the Kaminoans that did the research, but there's a chance it isn't. Because I just... Okay.
So, TK also, why is Obi-Wan revealing classified information about Ahsoka and the Mandalorian and the clones? If one of the clones here, this and gossip about it, then obviously seeks to happen early. I'm not sure what he's getting at there. I remember there being something in that scene that I did agree with him on, but I don't think it was like, I think there was something else, but I'd have to watch the scene with audio, not just the stills from the, because we can't play it obviously live because the YouTube will come after us again.
Why would Order 66 happen early if they're talking about Sidious? The code word is Order 66, which they don't know about. Yeah, but they're not.
I don't know what he's getting at. I would have to rewatch the scene and get back to you, because I remember there being something that I did agree with TK about the scene, but I don't remember exactly what it was because we can't play it. But here's another one, just because we're trying to get through it before you have to leave. Here they keep Maul inside of a one and only chamber that is constructed to make it so Maul is a completely 100%. He can't get out of prison. He is completely stuck there. That's a very interesting device to bring in and never bring in again. It's a very powerful tool.
Well, because it's the only one, I guess. It was used in like a museum.
But at the very least, Palpatine would want this. He would want, if this is possible, he would go after this, because the Empire going after the Jedi would have lots of uses for like this technology. And I find it hard to believe that no one has tried to reproduce this technology, and it seems like there's a perfectly good model right there.
I could definitely see that being like a story in the future of like.
This is old technology as well to mention.
Yeah, no, like him like kind of like commissioning Mandalorians to replicate that design. Like I could see him like, if for example with like Bad Batch or something, we could have like a potential season of like them going to Mandalore and like Garsax and experimenting with how to like replicate that design.
So here's an issue in terms of the story. We'll get back to TK in a minute. So they invent an impossible prison for Maul to not be able to escape out of, only to then contrive Ahsoka to open up the cell so that Maul can escape, because they can't have Maul die. So the problem here is that Ahsoka doesn't want the clones to be killed. She's very explicit about that. But she very easily lets Maul go, in which she should absolutely know that she is going to body every single one of them. Okay. Like, the clones have no chance against Maul, even without a lightsaber. So the point is that they contrive this into existence, in which, okay, I guess, it's a one thing I'm willing to maybe let slide. But then it's the fact that they later then in the episode have to have Ahsoka let him go, and he can't get out by himself.
So my explanation for this was basically Ahsoka at first did not care what happened to the clones, because like we see in earlier episodes of the show that Ahsoka has no issue killing people who are traitors. Like in Brain Invaders, for example, she is like completely fine killing clone troopers. Like Barriss does it, and she doesn't faze her. And I guess with this, it was just at this point in the story, she just did not. I guess she was just like, I'm gonna go investigate. I do not care.
I would say that's probably more issue with those episodes, rather than it being Ahsoka that does not care about clones, because I think Ahsoka, as far as she's characterized, does care about the clones, which is why in this episode they wanted to put so much focus on her not wanting to kill them.
Yeah, I don't think she doesn't care what happened. I think at just this point she just doesn't realize that they're doing it against their own will, which is something that she realizes is now like not deserving of them dying. I think I think like Rex and Jesse would be like something she would struggle to do, but I think if it was a clone, that was genuinely trying to murder her.
I think this creates more problems than it solves, though. She wants a distraction, but again, she has to know how powerful Maul is. Like, she fought him. She has to know that he is going to obliterate everyone, and that, in fact, he would even kill her, in fact, if he got the upper hand, and if he could. This is another danger that she has to account for, not that it's going to help her. In fact, we even see that this is a very bad thing because Maul ends up crashing the ship, which puts her in danger. And in fact, what if Maul comes across and he comes across Rex and he kills him, which we know she doesn't want to do. She, at the very least, even if she doesn't know about the chip, she doesn't want Rex to die. So I think it would have made much more sense in the episode if they had Maul escape by himself, rather than inventing an impossible chamber to escape out of and then making it so that he has to be let go.
Okay. I think
so,
that's
simple. What would have made it? Yeah, it's just an easier fix for this problem of Ahsoka letting Maul go. Would have just been that they removed this weird chamber thing.
Okay.
Just going back to the episode, flicking through some of the events, try and remember. Oh yeah, in the beginning of the episode, when they leave into the hangar is absolutely full of stuff. It is full of gunships. It is full of all sorts. Right, you can see everywhere. This is a stocker full hangar full of all the things that you could possibly need to escape. Very end of the episode, that entire not this episode, but the next episode, at the end of it, that hangar bay is completely 100% empty.
I think they could have just decommissioned the ships and just.
Well, that brings in another issue, because if they theoretically did destroy every single ship in the hangar bay, or they locked them all down, or that they did something so they couldn't be used, why did they leave a singular shuttle fine?
That's fair. That's fine. But I think just I guess that was just a ship by the off chance that they needed to leave. And they actually did.
I don't buy it because they are 100% willing to die. They say destroy the escape pods, destroy the ships. We don't want them leaving. They very much want to trap Ahsoka on there, even if they're going to crash into a planet.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
So I don't buy that if they did destroy all the other ships, that they wouldn't destroy this other one.
Okay.
Then there's also this scene that it does create a bit of a contradiction with Rebels, because in Rebels, Rex says that he took out his inhibitor chip and that they all had a choice, and that he didn't turn on his Jedi, which I think this very easily contradicts.
I mean, to be fair, he did end up redeeming himself at the end, and I don't think he would tell Kanan that. I think him being.
But it still makes him a bit of a liar then if he didn't say that. Because very obviously he does commit to Order 66 and he didn't remove his chip. It wasn't until later that his chip was removed in this particular episode. So it creates a continuity error. The Ahsoka novel actually does this event much better, because in the flashbacks that we do get of Ahsoka's perspective, she doesn't beat Maul in terms of one-on-one combat. She outsmarts him by using a ray shield to trap him. And once he is trapped, it is when Order 66 happens, and Ahsoka is nearly killed, but Rex saves her because Rex is removed his chip. He can think freely. But in the chaos, Maul escapes. And aftermath of the Battle of Mandalore, they bury Rex's armor in the ground, and they put some lightsabers there to fake their deaths. So in terms of events, that makes much more sense in that they have Rex removing his chip. They don't have it so Ahsoka beats someone that she shouldn't be able to overpower, and they also have it so that Maul's escape is essentially, it makes sense in that he would escape in the carnage of Order 66. I don't think it's very forced that they have to have Ahsoka go in and save him so that he can just go and bugger off.
Okay.
Rex, another issue is that he tells her to go find fives, in which I don't like the fact that he can resist it. I think it's something either on or off, and what's Ahsoka going to do with that information?
Well, she looks up information on fives. She says to find fives.
It's just find fives, but okay, if I was in Ahsoka's position and Rex just screamed at me, "Find fives," I don't think I would make that connection immediately. She goes straight to Maul, and then she goes to the droids, and that's when they have the exposition dump where she learns all about everything that happened. It's very strange that all of this is on this one particular Venator, particularly because why is all this information on a Venator?
It could just be like
a vessel. So, for example, when you have a military vessel, you do not put so much information on it that if that vessel gets captured or destroyed at all, that there's anything going to be retrievable which could be used devastating in the war. You wouldn't want the Separatists, in theory, having this information about the parasite that affected the clones so that they killed the Jedi generals. That is a very bad thing to have. So you would on a in a real life case in terms of the Second World War, whenever there was a risk of their ship being captured, the crew would burn, destroy in any way that they could any kind of documents or information that they had, and none of these files are encrypted, as TK just mentioned, but the one about Rex is encrypted. Which she has to decipher. What was the other problem with this scene? I don't bloody remember because we're not watching it. We're clipping through it. Damn it! I wish I could be more in depth, but it's annoying that I'm not watching the scene right now in order to remember what's exactly being said. But yeah, this whole scene here where she learns about Order 66, I think is very clunky, especially with how she gets told to go find fives, but then she then learns all this information in an info dump that she does when looking through the logs of the ship.
Okay.
What else? So this is so that she finds this. Maul brutalizes all the clones, and that guy loses his arm. Oof. She lures Rex. I don't remember any problems being here. And I think we'll quickly skip through the final episode. I don't remember there being... There were some big issues, but... It was the ship as well, like the ship. The fact that there are no ships there until there's that one ship that they don't even try to destroy. TK, can you remind me of like what the hell we were talking about in that watch together? Because some of it's just completely slipped my mind. Oh, they used Anakin's passcode, didn't they, for that scene? I remember now. I wish I could remember the particular issues with them, but I don't, unfortunately. This is why I kind of want to do a video series about the Clone Wars, going into the exact issues, because I think there's a lot that you can dig into, which I would probably need a lot more time to analyze some of these scenes. But as far as what I remember, unless TK has anything else to bring up, from what he can remember, I think that's a lot of what I can bring up right now.
Okay. I really don't have anything else to say.
And did you see he had to go soon?
Yeah, I did have to go in like a couple minutes.
Okay, so we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
So when all comes to all, not just in terms of the when we talk about this arc as a whole, I honestly, okay, I don't like giving things numbers, just simply because I don't like number systems. I think they kind of defeat the point. They're like, it's trying to numerically put into, it's essentially trying to put it into a numerical standard, which I don't think it's good. It's very inconsistent standard. But if I was to kind of give you a general idea of what I thought of this final episode, I honestly have to give them about a 4 or 5.
A 4 or 5. Okay.
I
That's
think
on. Yeah.
there are the biggest issue that I remember being the fact that Maul's plan makes no sense.
That's which is completely valid.
And that there are more that is going on, but I don't remember them particularly right now.
Okay.
And if we were doing a watch together again, I think that would be a great time to have that kind of discussion, breaking down all the individual points while watching it. But right now, we just have to go purely off memory.
Okay. That's cool. I'm happy we were able to have this discussion.
Yeah, especially some of the more the bigger issues that we just remember talking about in the. Is there absolutely anything else that I remember talking about in this scene? I don't remember it, but it's annoying because I remember there were more, but I don't remember what they were. Oh yeah, well yeah, you can have a conversation with TK at some point, and I accidentally just closed VC face, so I guess that means the camera's gonna have to come off. There we go, and I'll stop sharing screen since we're coming to the end.
All right.
So, anything else to mention or talk about before we end the discussion?
Nope. I don't really have much to say.
All right then.
Right.
I guess we'll end it here. I'm sorry we couldn't be a bit more in depth about all the issues, but YouTube was being an asshole about it, and we had limited for time. So thank you, Joe, for having this discussion where we could talk about the issues with the Siege of Mandalore, and thank you for being a good sport, because you didn't have to come on and talk about this, but
thanks.
You did. I know that you've had a bit of a back and forth with TK where it's sometimes can get issues, and I'll admit sometimes I do take problems with some of the things that you say on Twitter in terms of response to criticism. I still very much think it's not a great defense for Obi-Wan's bad dialogue to say that all Zabraks look the same.
All Zabraks.
Did
I say that?
I think you did, or there's something along the line where he would mistake Maul and Savage.
I just I didn't say he would think that. I think it was just the first thing when you see a Zabrak, at least for him, it would just be PTSD of Darth Maul. Which obviously.
Did you see the response that I said though, where I showed that these two look very different? I'll just quickly share the.
Oh no, I did see that. I did see that.
Because you see Savage, he has a blade, not a lightsaber. He very obviously looks yellow. He's got a different face. They have very anatomically accurate hologram of him, which you can even see the colors of. And then you have Maul, in which you can very obviously see the shape and the difference and the colors and everything. I don't believe there is a good enough reason to have a confusion between these two.
Yeah.
But I remember there was just other stuff. Actually, maybe we can squeeze this in. But the Wrong Jedi arc, I very much believe that Barris's motivations make no sense.
Yeah, for people with Barris, it's fine. I like Barris. I'm just not like super dedicated to defending her. So like, if people don't like the direction of her character, it's fine. But like, I'm not someone who's like, I'll die on this hill defending her.
It's not the direction that I take a problem with. I just genuinely believe that it doesn't make sense in what she's doing. Because it's weird. We have her actions which don't align with her stated motivations. She very explicitly states that she is doing this because the Jedi have fallen from the light that they used to hold so dear, and that they're an army working for the dark side. So, for some strange reason, she decides that she's going to bomb, not tell anyone. She's not going to go to Master Yoda. She's not going to talk to anyone on the council or to express these problems. At the very least, we haven't been shown that they are thinking about this right now, that they were told and that she just ignored them. It seems simply that she just decides that she was just going to bomb the Jedi Temple, and in which, if you had her fall to the dark side, would be fine, but then she's not falling to the dark side. She just says that, well, it'd make it, it's just inconsistent, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find what I said exactly in response to what you said. Because I believe you said that the reason why she framed Ahsoka was because she was trying to cut off loose ends. Was what you said, right?
Yeah, I said that, like, just she wanted to. Well, she killed Letta because Letta was gonna just end up telling someone, which she did. So she just
okay. So I'm fine with her killing Letta. The thing is that she very purposefully frames Ahsoka, which she tells Letta to ask for Ahsoka, and then not only that is that she implicates her in the death of Letta, which would have. That's already cut off loose ends. There's no one that can tie anything back to Barriss now. But she then feels the need to frame the bombing, which was on Letta, and that she now had no ties to. She was now purposely trying to frame on Ahsoka, which she must have known was going to get her executed. And Ahsoka and Barriss are supposed to be really good friends.
Well, I think at this point, Barriss and Ahsoka being friends just means nothing, because it's just she would be willing to do anything to, I guess, like.
But then the speech that she says very explicitly says that she's complaining that the Jedi have fallen to the dark side, in which she has no purpose in saying if she legitimately believes what she's doing, unless she's just mentally. I'm not going to use the R word. Insane. Unless she's insane. It doesn't make sense. Like her reasoning and line of logic.
Okay. I assumed it was just meant to be like intentional hypocrisy. Just she would be willing to do anything to cross that to prove her point, but in doing so, she became the very thing she swore to destroy.
I think they would have to point out that hypocrisy much more. To try and if they were good, because she sees the Jedi falling, and so again she doesn't tell Yoda. She decides, and her next course of action is to bomb the Jedi Temple and to try and get Ahsoka put to death, which she has to purposely have that intention because there's no other reason that she has to frame Ahsoka other than for killing off Mina.
Okay, I guess that's fair.
Yeah, so it's small things like that which I suppose me and TK take problem with in terms of the responses to our criticisms. But yeah, as most part, I think you're a shill dude. Oh, sorry, not dude. Bugger, sorry. They. Sorry, what do I refer you to as?
You can just say they.
They. Okay, as a. I'm trying to make that work in a sentence now. You're a cool they, I guess. Does that work? I'm going to say it works. A cool them? No,
They them. That's fine.
It's a weird to try and work that into conversation, but I'm trying to be respectful.
It's okay.
Anyway, so I don't think there's anything else. I think that's at the end of the conversation? You don't have anything else you have to go, so is that all before we end?
That's everything.
All right, then. Thank you for anyone that did stick by that. I think we had about 10 consistent viewers. So yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed that, and at least I enjoyed the discussion. I hope Joe enjoyed the discussion as well, and we'll see you all later.
All right, have a great weekend. I mean week. Oh my god, it's Monday.
Have a great week, not a great weekend.